Good morning, this is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Monday, September 6, 2021. The fire potential impacts for the next couple of days include quite a bit of heat, some near record heat coming to most of the Great Basin, starting in the western Great Basin today and expanding further north and eastward. We also have some wind over the central Idaho mountains and into eastern Idaho and western Wyoming today. And of course, smoke still remains in place over much of western Nevada, Idaho, and northern Utah. Again, smoke for this afternoon, still in place over northern and far western Nevada, a little bit of clearing across the central part of the state, and smoke expanding across the state of Idaho into western Wyoming, and some lighter amounts over northern and eastern Utah. Tomorrow, more of the same. The smoke thickens a bit over western Nevada, and then the smoke starts to move back into northern and central Utah. Precip and lightning for the last 24 hours is shown here. We had a very quiet day, warm and dry across the area. Fire activity is picking up across the north with some new initial attack fires and a larger one here in the northern Sawtooth area that was about 300 or so acres. And we have been seeing some fire activity picking up on our fires further north under the warm and dry conditions. Precip for the past 7 days and the past 30 days are shown here, percent of normal, and those values have been very low for the past 7 days. It's been very dry for much of the Great Basin except southern and eastern Utah. We did see some precip move through last week. And then the past 30 days, of course, showing a nice wet signal over Utah, eastern Idaho, and western Wyoming, with very dry conditions over Nevada and western Idaho. This has led to pretty big discrepancy in our fire danger across the area, with values on the lower side over Utah and up into western Wyoming and even southern Nevada to some extent, and then very high values over much of western and central Nevada and much of western central Nevada and western and central Idaho, where conditions have been very dry for quite a long time, and temperatures have been hot with low humidities. We have quite a few stations above the 97th percentile right now in these areas, and those values are just going to continue to increase as the weather pattern remains warm and dry. A closer look at some of these areas. Southwest Idaho, those values have been on a pretty significant increase over the past week or so, and the values are sitting right at the historical records for the time of year. And over western Nevada, along the southern Sierra Front, the values are actually setting new records for the time of year. Some of the highest values we've seen over the past 10 or so years are occurring right now in the southern Sierra Front. This morning's satellite imagery is showing that nice, strong, high pressure dominating the weather pattern across the western U.S. It's centered over the state of Nevada, which is where we'll see our hottest and driest conditions today. So again, high pressure over western Nevada, creating those conditions across the entire Great Basin for warm and dry weather. We do have some gusty winds over central and eastern Idaho today. We do have high-risk triggers issued for those winds. A closer look at the winds here, showing about 20 to 25 miles an hour wind gusts there in eastern Idaho, and the winds are also gusty in western Wyoming, but the fuels aren't quite as critical yet there, so we didn't issue any high risk. Lighter winds further south in Utah and Nevada, but very dry, a very dry atmosphere over Nevada, single-digit relative humidities, right around 5-6% across the entire state, slightly higher over Utah and Idaho. More of the same expected on Tuesday, with the ridge centering itself a little bit more over the Great Basin, continued hot and dry conditions, winds lighten up over Idaho, so no high risk there. Closer look at the winds, pretty light everywhere on Tuesday, and high temperatures in the upper 90s over western and central Nevada, not quite as high over Idaho and Utah, but getting there in the low 90s with those highs. So very hot and dry as we head into this first part of the week. On Wednesday, the ridge sticks around, shifts a little bit to the east for continued hot and dry conditions, temperatures warming a little bit more over the eastern half of the Great Basin. On Wednesday, we'll see winds pick up once again over the central Idaho mountains. No high risk issue just yet, but we may pull the trigger on that, and continued hot temperatures everywhere. No expected precipitation in the next 3 days. The weather pattern has been changing, and it's turning into a drier weather pattern than what we've seen the last couple of days. On Thursday, a little shortwave trough moves into the Pacific Northwest, which helps to push the high pressure a little bit to the east. Still very hot and dry everywhere, but we may see a little bit of moisture moving into the northern tip of the Great Basin here of the Central Idaho Mountains, which could bring some mixed wet thunderstorms and some gusty outflows with those. That low quickly scoots off to the east by Friday with a return of generally dry conditions. The moisture off the Baja California and Mexico here really isn't drawn up in the current models into the Great Basin, so the moisture stays off the coast, keeping our forecast dry into this weekend, unfortunately. And on Saturday, continued dry conditions, warm temperatures remaining near record across much of the area. And then more of the same on Sundays. The high is centered slightly to our south and east, but temperatures still remaining hot, the dry air mass. The 7-day precip totals are not impressive, remaining dry over Utah and Nevada as a deeper moisture remains to the south and off the coast, unfortunately. But some precip coming as that little shortwave trough brushes the Central Idaho Mountains on that Wednesday to Thursday timeframe. The extended forecast for the 13th through the 19th keeps the temperatures warm over Utah and Nevada. Looks like we'll continue to see little troughs moving into the Pacific Northwest, keeping temperatures cool up there, but a dry signal across the entire Great Basin as we head into the middle of September. This concludes today's fire potential briefing. Please check back tomorrow for the latest update.